Hello there, it's Tania Gabrielle, Wealth Numerologist, and welcome to Star Codes. This is actually my first broadcast of the year and the decade. 2020 has started, and I'm just so thrilled. I want to, first of all, thank you. It's been amazing to start my Star Codes podcast in 2019, and I thank you for being part of this. Without you, this wouldn't be possible, and we've really created a wonderful community here where we can share what it means to live in the light and live in truth and just be there for each other, awakening together. We're here to open our hearts, we're here to quiet our minds, to feel peaceful, blissful, joyful. And that is what this Star Codes podcast is about. We are looking at the star codes, the numbers, and the astrology together every week to get some clarity and to feel the wonderful divine order in the progression of the codes in the sacred geometry. And today we're going to cover the planet of astronumerology, Uranus. Uranus makes an amazing shift right as we begin the decade and on the same day as the powerful eclipse that's coming up. So this is a very important moment because Uranus is all about freedom. And Uranus governs the Aquarian age. Uranus is the planet that rules Aquarius. So anything Uranus does really is of utmost importance. So we start this decade with a very, very important event. The direct station of Uranus at 2 degrees in Taurus. Uranus entered Taurus last year and will be there until 2025. And when a planet changes direction, we call that a station. And when a planet is changing direction, it comes to a standstill, especially a slow-moving planet will stand still for a while. So it is at its most potent. It has the most impact on us when it is shifting directions. Just like when you change the sails on a sailboat, it takes the most energy to shift your direction. And then once you're sailing again, it's much easier. But the shift itself is the most intense, potent moment. And that is what's going on right now. So like I said, at 2 degrees Taurus, Uranus is changing directions. 2 is a very important number in 2020, as you can imagine. 2020 is made up of 2 2s. It's perfect vision. We're going to be seeing things more clearly than ever in 2020. I keep mentioning that because as you awaken to the truths around you, it's really wonderful to be reminded that it's the way it's supposed to be. So at 2 degrees Taurus, you are going to be bringing balance, which is what 2 is about, the peaceful equilibrium, the harmony, in the topics that Taurus governs. Taurus governs the second house in astrology, which is about your core values and financial flow. It is also about pleasure and love, sensuality, security, serenity, beauty, pleasure. So these areas of your life are being shifted, which is wonderful because without a sense of beauty, without feeling like you can walk the earth and see all the beauty every day, why are we here? We're here to enjoy the process, to find joy in everything. So Uranus will be in Taurus until 2025. And this happens, this pivotal day where Uranus actually is literally pivoting, is happening on the Cancer full moon eclipse, also on January 10th. So we're going to cover today that shift, what that means. It also happens 2 days before the Capricorn stellium, which I've been talking about for so long. That's January 12th. And how Uranus is blessed by Venus at this very time. Venus is the ruler of Taurus, so this is really wonderful news. And of course, we'll end with tips and takeaways as well. So the sign of Cancer figures as strongly as Taurus because of the Cancer full moon eclipse, the lunar eclipse that happens as Uranus stations direct. And Cancer is ruled by the moon. Taurus is ruled by Venus. This is very important because the year and decade is starting off with a very personal focal point. The moon and Venus are personal planets. They are faster moving. And of course, the moon is the fastest. It takes 28, 29 days to move around Earth. And so we have this sense of Uranus taking us to a place where personal areas in your life are undergoing a realignment, because Uranus sets you free. Uranus creates a revolution, an internal shift that yearns for freedom. So new ground is being broken emotionally, moon, and in terms of anything to do with flow, with pleasure, with love, with the flow of money, the flow of your attention on beautiful things, beauty in general around you. So Taurus is putting that focus on beauty, on flow, on love. Cancer is putting the focus on your home, on family, on personal love, on nurturing. So you're freeing up space now so you can decorate your own environment with things that bring you joy and pleasure. So if there's a relationship, for example, that needs your attention, you need to take a more relaxed approach that is more filled with pleasure and intimacy, where you might communicate in a more sweet way, or a more refined way, or a more nurturing way, where you listen more closely. This goes for abundance as well, because Taurus, being the ruler of the second house, which is also about your financial flow, governs how you approach the flow of money, the attraction of finances in relation to beauty and joy. So it's time to think outside the box and really focus not on the creation of money, but on how you yourself feel lit up with joy in order to bring in that flow. This is what's important, because Uranus is the planet of invention. And if you're not inventing every day, if you're not using your imagination and your intuition, and you feel free to reinvent yourself at all times, never hemmed in to a process or an idea that you had in the past, this is really powerful in terms of humans being unleashed, their imagination being unleashed. And with the focus on the Capricorn stellium as well, a couple days later, that powerful shift with Pluto and Saturn and the Sun and Mercury in Capricorn is also about your choice of profession, because that's what Capricorn rules, the 10th house of your career. So it's really looking at, well, what are you actually participating in, day out? You know, some part of your career is going to take off. In any case, stimulating changes are in play. They are invigorating. They are encouraging you to take risks, which is what Uranus is about. And since Uranus governs genius, I call it the Nikola Tesla planet. So think outside the box, think galactically, think cosmically. You want to embrace everything that makes you unique, which is, of course, revealed in your own personal star code. So go do that fun research about your birthday and about your stars at starcodeclass.com. It's a free class that I created for you. And if you haven't taken it yet, you can learn much about yourself and the people in your life at starcodeclass.com. So enjoy that, because Uranus is now that lightning bolt of inspiration, and it will disrupt your everyday assumptions. It will disrupt what you thought to be secure. And that especially goes for beliefs, because it's time for original creative expression, and that is true reality, whereas beliefs are created in your mind. And we're going to go more into this whole how your thoughts can interfere with your creativity in the tips and takeaways later on, because this is very, very important to understand, because Uranus governs your higher mind. And so Uranus represents liberation and innovation and revolution and a free spirit, inspiration, brilliance, unconventionality. It's the desire of Uranus to let go of those old paradigms, those old beliefs, those old ideas, those constraints in your mind, which is where they live, because Uranus is the awakener. So we're being awakened at the onset of this new decade on the 10th of January. And let me point out here too that these numbers that we have at this time, the eclipse, which I've created a star code forecast for already. You might want to go watch that. It's a very important eclipse on the 10th. The Cancer full moon eclipse happens at 20 degrees. We're in 2020, so the sun and moon will be at 20 degrees opposite each other in 2020. And then Uranus stations direct at 2 degrees, which is that 2 again, but on January 10th. And both of these events are happening January 10th. These are numbers that have zeros. So the 0 in numerology is the pivot point number. It is the 0 point number. It is not a value. It is in between worlds. It is bridging worlds. And it represents divine protection. So we have this sense now. And let me know if you can feel this in your life, where you just know you can trust that everything's going to be okay. And all you need to focus on is your internal life, because the outside will take care of itself. And if you take your focus and put it within, that trust now has lightened up whatever fears that you've carried around with you for so long, years and decades. Those can be just discarded. Uranus is saying that. Let go of it. Let go of that past. This is the most important time now. This 2020 period is the epitome of the 2000s. So everything that you've taken with you up until now, that baggage, you want to let go. And that 0 energy is giving you the trust to just be open to a spring cleaning at soul level, which is what Uranus wants, to be proactive in embracing any kind of change. Yeah, right? And so you want to initiate that. You want to initiate the transformation. You don't want to wait for these changes to occur. You want to make them happen. You want to participate. You want to be proactive. You want to shake things up so they can fall into place in a new way. You want to restructure your life wherever that's necessary. You want to find solutions. You want to be the solution. You don't want to be the problem, right? So you want the solutions that you focus on are going to free up energy, which is what Uranus does so well because it shakes things up. Free up energy for creative endeavors, for discovering joy every moment of the day. Focusing on problems does the opposite. It stagnates energy. So with Uranus playing such a dynamic moment here during the Cancer full moon eclipse at 20 degrees on January 10th and the Capricorn stellium 2 days later, it means that nothing in your life will have the same meaning as before. And this may seem disconcerting because nothing will feel the same. This is a multi-dimensional shift. We are entering the Aquarian age, and this is the decade that it's really moving rapidly towards the immersion of the Aquarian freedom that we're all seeking, because freedom is the goal of all goals, is to be free, right? So you may feel more restless now because you're going to discover how to put these new ideas and revelations and awakenings to practice in your life, and that takes some time. It takes a reframe internally. So you may question things. You may question why you're here, what your identity is, your relationships, your career, where you live. It could be many things. It could be, anything from how you eat, what you're putting inside your sacred vessel. It could be your financial plan, how you're focusing on saving money, what it is, are we too rigid? Do we need to loosen up the reins a little bit? So it all needs recalibration right now. And that fresh injection of energy from Uranus is going to be really on the table. So it is time to just let go. And so the question becomes, where are we heading? What is it that is giving us a sign? Well, that is where Venus comes in. Venus, the ruler of Taurus, where Uranus is now until 2025, is forming this beautiful sextile with Uranus while it is stationing direct. And the exact moment that they are together in a sextile, which is 60 degrees in astrology, is on January 15th. And January 15th is a special day because 15 is the number of the spiritual alchemist. the bringer of joy, uplifting others through joy. And so we have a numerology message of joy, love, uplifting, beauty. 15 also stands for anything that is pleasurable and artistic and beautiful. And Venus, of course, governs that as well, the very, very same qualities. And 15 is related to abundance and prosperity, as is Venus. So Venus sextiling Uranus, which is a harmonious connection, at the very moment Uranus is in Venus's sign, at the very moment we have the eclipse, at the very moment we have the stellium, is a huge message to look at, well, what does this represent? Well, you are going to be very stimulated to love more and to feel more joy, because as the ruler of Taurus, there's a sense of security. Taurus is an earth sign, and Venus is just so into everything that we crave in life, beautiful surroundings, and of course Uranus brings the desire for independence, so having surroundings that reflect who you are. And so a desire for independence in terms of how you create, how you express yourself, the beauty that you bring through, the joy in your relationships. So being open to exploring shifts within you at all times, being present at all times so that you can generate greater awareness, greater financial flow, greater embracing in a joyful, loving way. And so if you feel a little bit like, oh my God, there's so much going on, and there's a little bit of a nervous energy, which Uranus can bring as well, because Uranus governs the nervous system, you want to channel that into your imagination, because, you know, Uranus being the higher mind and exploration and intuition and invention, and Venus being creativity, that is like, okay, let's get into our downloads. Let's listen and let's be imaginative, and let's write or paint or dance or compose or speak, or just, you know, sit and allow the beauty of creation to flow through us. Let's go out in nature. Let's explore. This is definitely your inner adventurer being unleashed in a joyful, beautiful way. So that is the message, the true message, because, you know, the positive connection of Venus, the ruler of Taurus, with Uranus at the moment that this is all happening is fantastic. So let's look at some tips and takeaways now, because it's very important to have a clear understanding of what Uranus actually means. Mercury is the planet of the lower mind, the mind that has to deal with the practicalities of living on Earth in a physical body and navigating that space, that 3D space. But Uranus is the higher mind, the imagination, the intuition. It is what we've lost in so many ways and what's now returning. And when I say it is what we've lost, it is what has been shoved to the wayside, not ignored, or completely not acknowledged in our academic institutions, in the scientific community. So what's going to happen now as we enter the Aquarian age, because Aquarius is the sign Uranus rules, is science and spirituality are going to merge, because Uranus governs the mystical and the scientific. The mystery schools and the scientific schools are going to come together. So we have to prepare the way internally first, as is always the case. So we got to look at how we think, because the higher mind, of course, when I say mind, you're probably wondering, well, that's how I think. Well, it is actually not how you think. We have been taught, and I don't know who had this quote, but it is something like, I think, therefore I am. It doesn't make any sense, because you have to be first. You have to be in existence first before you can actually think. Thought doesn't come before existence. And Uranus is reminding you that thinking does not come before being. So you can think because you already exist, but it's not the other way around. So that quote has been ingrained in us. You know, and these are very subconscious things that can happen. We are being told these things, and they go in and they go into our subconscious, and we don't even realize that this operating system is churning out our daily existence. So Uranus wants us to shift the significance of thinking into inspiration. So since you don't need to think first to be alive, the opposite is actually true. And since Uranus governs the higher mind of intuition and inspiration, we need to set the mind free of information. And of course, the opposite has been true instead. So the lower mind recycles information and uses it in practical ways. And, this is info we've picked up along the way every day. It's what we've learned in terms of also education and media. It's old data, right? It is not invented by you, whereas Uranus is inspiration. That is not info. Very different. So the fire of inspiration lives within Uranus, and it reminds us that our existence is a miracle. I think, therefore, I am is not a miracle, right? We have to exist. We have to be. That is the miracle. And Venus sextile Uranus is reminding us of the beauty of life, the miracle of life, the beautiful moments. So if you look back in your life and you look at even one beautiful moment, you're not thinking about anything. You're feeling the bliss. You're feeling the pleasure. You're not thinking about the bliss. You're feeling the ecstasy. You're feeling the joy. And so those precious moments are not about thought. So they're about living fully, experiential living. So the real focus here is, do you want to be or do you want to think about being? And most of the time we're thinking about life. We're not being engaged. We're not immersed. And Uranus sets us free to be that inventor, to be that Nikola Tesla, to invent your life. All of us have that capacity. You don't want to sit around thinking about what you want to do all the time, which is what most people do. You want to experience it. So it's time to set yourself free of this bondage of over-analyzing, overthinking everything, because that's what's holding you back. And Uranus is now saying, look, we're starting the 2020s. I'm the first planet that's really making a splash. There's a reason for that. I own the Aquarian age here. And whatever you're thinking about is absolutely irrelevant, because thoughts don't have anything to do with the creative process. It has nothing to do with reality. Reality has to do with what you're feeling, what you're immersed in. So Uranus is a truth bomb right now. It is basically shaking everything up. And because anybody can think up anything, right? People are even willing to die for their beliefs. And so thoughts have become more important than living fully, right? I mean, death means end of life. So to die for belief, to die for a thought, that doesn't make any sense. Linear thinking is out. Capricorn is the sign of going by the rules. And of course, rules are important in society, but it is not why we're here. It is just to keep us in a place where we feel secure. But then we have to use our higher mind, our inspiration, to explore the beauty of life. So this stellium in Capricorn is breaking down the systems that have made us feel like we don't have any reason to trust our intuition. And so this is the linear thinking, being logical, being linear. That negates life. It negates the attention on beauty, on trust, on everything that academia doesn't represent, right? The mystery schools are what represent the miraculous spiritual connection to the cosmos. And if you just really allow yourself to look at just one beautiful experience in your life, you will sparkle. You will just feel so uplifted because you want more of that. And that's the experiential dimension. So a linear logical approach will not create that moment for you. It will drag you down. It will drag down your spirit. So this stellium happening at the same time as Uranus direct is dismantling those structures, those systems of focusing on your lower mind and thinking through everything in a purely logical way, a linear way, right? We now need to embrace the involvement of life in a way that extends to the impossible, that extends to the amazingly eternal exploration. where every choice brings new miracles, where every experience is important, where the goals don't become the reason for the journey. The journey itself is the reason for the journey. And I wrote an article about this because so many people feel they have to set resolutions and goals at the beginning of a year. If you go to my website, taniagabrielle.com, you can see it. It's called Message for 2020. I talk about how goal setting is now out. This is the old way. Beauty and mystery are diametrically opposed to linear thinking. So this is why so many people struggle, because they've lost that thread of that joy, that imagination, that inspiration that sustains their soul. And so if you look at life as an exploration, as an adventure, it gets exciting because you have a reason to live. Every moment is fresh. Every moment is new. You're in charge, right? You're not putting anybody else in charge, whether it's beliefs or things you've learned. That's, if it helps you live a practical life, yes, good, but it's not going to inspire you and bring you joy. So looking at things that way is pretty dismal. So through a thought process of logic, you will just follow that path of destruction and misery. And you can't handle situations well. So if you're in a situation, for example, where you're in a partnership and the partner decides to leave you and you feel you failed in some way, you may think that your life isn't worth it at that moment. And logic would dictate that all the energy that you put into the relationship was wasted. But Uranus stationing direct now in Taurus during this Cancer full moon eclipse says there are new possibilities. Love is not having a goal. Love is your imagination being set free to explore joy in that relationship every day. You need to be interdependent. You need to be not dependent on that person to experience joy. So you know this. This is something you were born with, but you have to experience it. You can't just think about it. So you need to just know that when you use logic, it's important to do so for practical matters, right? Capricorn discernment. That is wonderful for linear thinking. That is because we are born in a 3D world and we need that linear logical thinking for the practical moments in our life. However, the ultimately blissful moments cannot be experienced through your thoughts. So no matter how smart you are, how well you did on your SATs or whatever it is, your IQ is amazing, your intellect soars through the roof, that doesn't matter because you're just covering space between polarities. That's all you're doing. You're not set free to go beyond the physical dimension into galactic dimension. Life is not created for us to get from point A to point B. That is linear thinking. Life is multidimensional. And Uranus is reminding us of that, and that you have a beautiful instrument, your soul, at your disposal that is singing beauty and is craving for beauty and is craving for joy. And your inner instrument would like to write beautiful music in your life every day. The music of joy, the key feeling that we want to have, aside from freedom, is to feel joy, right? So inspiration is that tool, is that connection that you have to experience the spiritual dimensions, the galactic dimensions. And it allows you to taste and touch other dimensions. It takes you from the physical, practical, into the truly soul experiential. So when you are in that state of constant inspiration, you actually feel illuminated. You feel lit up. So that instrument is now bringing light and love into your life. It's being tuned to love and light. It is being tuned to the songs of joy. And so when you seek that, when you are moving away, able to move away from that thought process that governs everything. 90% of most people's lives are governed just by thinking. This has to change now. We have to truly feel our way, intuit our way through life and feel that connection, the symphony that's created when we all play our inner instrument. That symphony is what our galaxy represents, our stars represents, the universes represent. They are all points of light. They're all sounds because the universe is built on sound. And so we are here to rediscover that we are instruments. And we want to tune our instruments to joy, not to misery. So that is the message at the beginning of the 2020s from Uranus, the ruler of the Aquarian age, that we are now immersing ourselves in. That is the message for us. And so I really hope you have a wonderful beginning few weeks of the decade, because it really is a truly remarkable time. And if you haven't yet, go to starcodeclass.com for that free masterclass. It's all about you. It's everybody's favorite subject, learning about yourself and learning about your friends and family. So enjoy that, and I will see you next week in our Star Code podcast. Lots of love.